This is a video on how to get started with your Hackerbot AI Elite Edition. So once you unbox everything, you'll have your arm, of course the battery, the robot, the head, and a little bag that comes with a bunch of parts. You will need a PH2 Phillips head screwdriver and a very small straight edge screwdriver for the assembly process. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is remove, these are probably tucked in on your robot, but we'll need to remove these data and power connections. So use your straight edge screwdriver, loosen those. You can't loosen them too much, so just go until it starts to click a little bit. Okay, you can pull those wires out. Okay, and for the sake of this video, I've already done this, but you're going to loosen these 4 screws up here and take this shipping plate off using the Phillips head screwdriver. Make sure you don't lose those screws. Okay. Now we're going to have to lift off this top plate. So you're going to unscrew, there's 1 screw here, and again I've already kind of done this for the purpose of the video, and then 6 more screws back here. 1 here, 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 there, there, and there. Okay, so remove all of those screws. And now carefully lift the top plate off. And actually one thing I would recommend, this is the one weak part. It's not weak when you assemble it, but right now these posts are super easy to break off. So I would recommend, now that we've taken those screws off underneath, is putting this top plate back on and take your screwdriver and tighten these back up just to protect those back 3D printed posts from breaking off. And I'm not going to tighten them all the way just because I'm holding the camera, but I would absolutely recommend doing that. And then lift your platform off, and you can see the bottom of it. Okay, now we need to mount the arm. So the arm is going to mount in this orientation. Kind of see it there. Kind of, this is a little bit tough with one hand. We're going to mount the arm, make sure it's oriented correctly. So, and then inside of this bag, you're going to find 4 M4 screws, and they're going to fit in these larger 4 holes and go into the bottom of the arm. Gotta make sure it's lined up just right. Come on. There it is. There we go. Okay, for the sake of this video, I'm just going to put 2 of these in, but make sure they're tight and put all 4 screws in. Okay, and then here's a little bit of a tricky part. We have to lower this whole thing on, but first we need to feed up and make sure they're, make sure these aren't twisted. Make sure they're nice and straight, otherwise this won't go down. But we need to feed these 2 wires into the 2 slots back up through this mounting plate. Okay. And then as you're lowering this plate down, be pulling these wires up from the top. Otherwise they can kind of get bunched up in there. Yeah, mine's not going down, so it's probably these wires. There we go. Okay, so you can kind of see it's nice and firm. If it feels wobbly, it probably means that these wires are bunched up underneath, which you can actually see. Maybe see. Mine are. The yellow one got. There we go. Now it's nice and stable. Okay, so make sure this mounting plate is lined up. You can kind of look and make sure these holes are aligned with the mounting bracket. Now you can go back and unscrew this plate because we're just protecting those posts back there. Okay. All right, again, be very careful of these posts. Okay, now we want to take our screws that we took out and we're going to tighten those all back in. What I would recommend is kind of just lightly tightening the front one and the outside one here. Just a little bit, like don't tighten it, but just like loosely put it in. And then the one other one over on this corner. And once you get them all lightly in, then go ahead and tighten them down, just to make sure the alignment's right before you tighten any of them. Go ahead and tighten all these down now. Now for the sake of this video, I'm not going to put them all in yet, just so it's not so long. But make sure you tighten down this screw. You're going to put one here, you're going to put one there, and you're going to put one there. So there should be 3, 3, and 1 down in there. And if you need to get in there a little bit better, you can always pop out the 5-volt regulator to give you a little bit more room. Just make sure that the pins are lined up in the right spot before you plug it back in. One thing to check before you start putting more stuff on top is if you do have the AI kit, make sure it didn't get loose in shipping. Just make sure that's plugged in nicely there. And make sure these wires in the right spot. If anything did come out or you're not sure, hit us up on Discord. We'll fill you in. Okay, so now we need to put these power and data wires back in. So they're labeled. So down here it says RBWY. That's for colors. So Y for yellow. So stick that in. And I would recommend doing one at a time. So stick it in and then tighten the terminal block. Give it a little light tug to make sure it's in there. The next one. Snug. Yep. And then B for black. And R for red. Okay. For the arm, we can also plug in, there should be a little block here. Again, some of these connectors are the same connector, and you will blow stuff up if you plug them in the wrong one. So we put these little blocks in there just to make it harder to do that. So we'll plug in the little extension cable that will power the arm. So if there's a block in that plug, you can take it out. It's marked 12 volt out. That cable is inside your little baggie. I'm gonna grab, I think I have another one here. Okay, it looks like this. I did notice these cables, like if you really jam them hard, you can plug them in the wrong way. So just make sure the little tabs line up. Get that plugged in. All right, and now we're going to attach our head. Okay, again, do not break these off. So just be really careful about those. I'm going to try to do this while I'm filming. So I'm going to set the head back here. And the first cable you want to plug in is this data and power cable. So that plugs in right here. And by data, I mean I2C. So that's what's connecting our main controller to the audio board and the Dynamixel controller in the head. Next, we're going to plug in our global shutter camera in the head up on the top center USB port. So these two are bluish USB 3. And then on the other side, we're going to plug in our USB to audio adapter. Okay, and just kind of make sure these cables aren't all tangled. Okay, and then we just very carefully set the head back up here in the right position. One thing to double check on the head is that there's a little light black triangle. Make sure that's in the back. If that's not in the back, then you can turn the head and rotate the head so it's in the right position, but just make sure the little black mark is in the back. And then put the screws that you took out of this plate and put them in the top of the head and tighten those all down well. Then take the visor out of the bag. I already have one out. And place it on there, just like so, and make sure it's straight. And then you can take your battery and slide it in the battery slot. Okay. Going to the back of the robot. This is just like a ground loop isolator. You can kind of stick that in there to get it out of the way, and just make sure your cables are all nice and clean and not wrapped up. We'll leave this unplugged for now, but that'll go to power your arm. And now, again, these cables are easy to plug in backwards, so just make sure that a little tab and red to red and black to black, and plug in your battery. Just like that. Okay. If we go back to the front of the robot, we can see that it's now powered up. Yay. Hackerbot will start to look around. There's a couple PCBs here. We have one for the mouth controller, the audio amplifier. The top one is controlling the Dynamixels for the head, and then there's some quick stemma connectors in here. You can plug other like sensors or different things in from SparkFun or Adafruit. We have some time of flights in the front. But now what we want to do is we want to create our first map. That's the fun part. Okay, so I set up my charging base. You want to make sure it's up against a wall with a good clean area on both sides. I have a really thick carpet, and I think with the extra weight of the stuff on top of the robot, it was sinking down into the carpet, so I had to put it on this map. But I have friends with Hackerbots that have carpet, and they haven't had this problem. So I would try it without any kind of map, and you're probably okay. But if the robot just kind of runs into these tabs and isn't able to get up on the charging base, you may need to put it on a little mat like I did. Okay, so next we need to get the robot on our Wi-Fi network. So to do that, you power on the robot by pushing this front power button for a few seconds, and you'll see it turn blue, and then you can release the button. And that'll power up here.
Device started.
Okay, and then we want to go into our phone and we're going to download an app called Tuya Smart. And we have links for that in our online documentation. So once you download the app, open the app, and you don't pay attention to this. I forgot to remove it from my last video.
Wi-Fi reset.
Okay, so your app will show up like this. We have no devices added. So we need to tell the base that we want to put it into pairing mode. So to do that, you push both of these buttons, the home button, the power button simultaneously. Click them down. Wait.
Wi-Fi reset.
Okay, when you hear that, you can,
If
it does start to move, you just tap the front power button. That's always kind of your pause button on the base. But now that it's in Wi-Fi pairing mode, you can see that white light blinking in the back. And then within the app, we hit the plus sign, add device, and there it is. So it should pop up. It might have a couple different names. It doesn't matter. It's best if you put your phone on your network that you're going to be connecting to the robot bot first. So it'll automatically populate the information there. We hit next once you put in your SSID and password. And this takes maybe 10 seconds or so to add it.
Succeeded in network connection.
All right, you should see the name of the robot, Hackerbot AI Elite Edition, come up. If you do want to name it something specific, you can hit the little pencil and change the name, and when you're done, hit done. And that's it. You may have a couple screens that you can just click through on here. I think it just hit skip or next or something. And now you get this screen so where you can begin mapping. And to begin mapping, first we want to put the robot on the dock. Something to note, these time of flights basically are detecting anything above the LiDAR. So the robot base does a really good job of not getting stuck on short objects with the bump sensors or the LiDAR, but we use these time of flights to detect any object above the LiDAR, so so it doesn't get jammed under your couch or a coffee table or whatever you have in your space. These kind of go right up against the front of the face. They look at a diagonal. This one's looking up in this area. This one's looking up in this area. But if you do have the arm out in front, it'll think that's an object. It basically can't tell the difference between the arm sticking out in front of the robot or, like an actual object that it needs to detect. So if I tried to start the robot like this, it would just kind of wiggle around thinking there's something in front of it that's not getting away from it. So when you do your map, make sure the arm is kind of tucked just back from this, if there's like kind of an invisible wall right here, just make sure it's behind that wall so it doesn't see the front of the arm. Okay, so now that we've got that, I just like to wiggle the robot, line it up straight with the front of the charger, and I just kind of slowly push it forward.
Charging.
Until it says charging. You'll see the light turn green, and if you look underneath, you'll see a couple lights on the charger PCB light up to indicate that it's charging our battery pack up here. And now we can go back to the map, the app, and we're ready to start our map. So, if I was actually going to start this map, I would clean up my tools and make sure my environment's ready to go. and then hit quick mapping. And there you'll see the robot come off of the charger.
Start cleaning.
It'll say start cleaning. If suction is on, so if it's kind of loud and it's actually like vacuuming right now, you can see the map starting to be generated there. I'm just kind of keeping it from, anyway, we'll stop it. You can either pause it in the app or
Pause cleaning.
hit this front power button. You just tap it. That pauses the base at any point. And you can see, the map's starting to be generated down there. If the suction is on, it's kind of loud, and we're playing with robots. Don't necessarily need to like clean our house right now. So if you want to change it, you can click cleaning preferences. If you wanted it to really vacuum your house while it's mapping, you can hit max. But I put suction as closed in this water volume we're not using. But I hit closed also and hit confirm, and that'll basically, we just get probably 10x the battery life on the base if we don't have the suction fan on while we're driving around. It's also a lot quieter. But if you actually did let it go, it basically explores all the areas on its own. And it'll basically, once the map is done, it'll start to vacuum. So you do kind of want to watch it, unless you do want it to vacuum your house also. But once it switches to vacuuming, it'll have a little white line where you can see it starting to vacuum within your map. And you can pause it and then hit dock, so that icon, or you can hit the little house icon on the robot, and I would just let it automatically navigate back to the charging base once it's done mapping. What else? That's basically it. Once it gets back to its charger, if you just got your robot, I would let it fully charge before you keep playing with it. But then check our online docs and ask any questions on Discord, and you can start writing code for the Raspberry Pi to get your Hackerbot to do some interesting things. So can't wait to see what you build. Look at the documentation. Oh, one step I totally forgot is to format your SD card. So before we plugged in the robot to power, if you already followed these instructions, I would just unplug it here, take the SD card out of the bag, put that into your computer, and run Raspberry Pi Imager. We have information on the online documentation on how to format the SD card and get your Raspberry Pi on your Wi-Fi network. You then use the tweezers and put the SD card into the Raspberry Pi through that little hole there. This is probably the most difficult step of the entire process. The SD card will go with the little copper contacts up, so kind of upside down, and it'll slide into the slot, and then you can plug your robot back in to power it up. And at that point, then your Raspberry Pi should be on your Wi-Fi network, and you can just connect to it over SSH, and just do the rest of the configuration that we have in the documentation to be able to log into your Pi easily. So yeah, follow that. Hit us up on Discord. Can't wait to see what you build. Thank you very much.